Angels, it's Hailey, Reese, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am so excited that you are here, and I hope that you are having an absolutely beautiful, magical, fantastic morning, afternoon, or night, whatever it is for you, when this video finally reaches you. Today's video is a spooky one and has been highly requested as of lately. I've had a couple of you reaching out asking if I would dive into some more Ouija board gone wrong experiences, and I thought, you know what, I actually haven't dove into one for quite some time, so why the heck not? Now, I do want to make a very quick disclaimer before we get into today's story and let you guys know that I don't believe Ouija boards are inherently evil in and of themselves. I know people who have used Ouija boards and have had really positive experiences, but one thing that I know is that Ouija boards are not a toy, and if you should decide to play with one or use one, you should make yourself very aware of the rules, the warning signs to look out for, and just remind yourself that while not everybody has a horrific experience with a Ouija board, you would hate to be the one that does. I thought I would get that out of the way before we get started, because I know that there are people who comment on my videos sometimes saying like, Hailey, why are you acting like Ouija boards are totally evil? I love using my Ouija board. And that's great that that's their personal experience, but I do think it's important to educate on the dangers of contacting the other side in general if you aren't aware of what could go wrong. And in this particular story, gone wrong it did. Before we get into today's video though, I would just very quickly like to thank today's video sponsor, Keen. Now, if you guys have been on my channel for a while, you guys would know that I've absolutely loved partnering with and using Keen for years now. Keen connects you with talented tarot readers and astrologists who can provide clarity and insight into your life. I have loved using Keen, Mama Reese has loved using Keen, and when Grams was still Earthside with us, she absolutely loved using Keen too, and I can't recommend Keen enough. If you want to get a reading on Keen, getting started is so easy. You just create an account and choose from hundreds of readers online right now. Honestly, you guys, the readers have unique gifts and abilities that truly provide you with clarity and insight into your life and current situations. There are so many incredible readers that you can find one that best suits your needs and what you're looking for, and then you're able to connect with them either via text or phone call, whichever you're more comfortable with. The best part is that as a new Keen customer, you can get your first 10-minute reading for just $1.99, which is up to $99 in savings. Like, that is huge. All you have to do is go to trykeen.com/Reese. I will have it linked at the very top of my description for your convenience. And all you gotta do is click the link down in my description box to save big time with Keen. I promise, if you guys take the time to really see which reader you connect with best, it is such a phenomenal experience and I cannot recommend it enough. So thank you so much to Keen for providing so much insight into my life and for sponsoring today's video. But without further ado, let's get into this terrifying Ouija board experience. So this is titled Terrifying True Ouija Board Gone Wrong, which sounds creepy, so let's see what happens. Here we go. Another cliche story of a Ouija board going completely wrong and terrorizing another family's life. Trust me, if it didn't happen to me, I would think the exact same thing. But what I'm about to tell you is 100% the truth. And if I even warn one person to be more careful when contacting the dead, then so be it. My name is Micah, and I am from quite literally the middle of nowhere. Growing up, my only real friends were my cousins, and we were basically forced to only hang out with one another. I was the youngest of 4 cousins and didn't have any siblings growing up, so I felt like my cousins were that role for me. Growing up, we all got along really well, but as we got older, my oldest cousin Gary started to rebel. He turned into what I can only describe as goth, and stood out like a sore thumb in our old country town. People started accusing Gary of being a Satan worshiper, and further believed this when he stopped attending church. At this time, Gary was 18, and I was 14 years old. Believe it or not, my family, including my aunt and uncle, honestly thought it was just a phase, and had more to do with the shows he'd been watching and bands he'd been listening to, so they just encouraged us all to still hang out together. I'm sure you know where this is heading, and you're probably right. one summer night, Gary came over with a Ouija board. Our parents had went to dinner for a date night, so to speak. There was only one restaurant in our town that I would say is more like a diner anyways, so they were heading a couple of towns over and were definitely going to be a while. I don't think our parents knew that he had brought over the Ouija board because looking back, they're extremely religious and likely would have told me there was no way that could come into our home. But regardless, he brought it. My cousins, Giselle and Gina, were about as skeptical as I was, but all Gary had to do was pull the baby's card and he knew that we would ultimately decide to do it. Gary said that he'd been using his Ouija board for months and that his childhood friend Matt, who had passed away, was talking to him through it. Sure, I thought, but I didn't want to burst his bubble. Gary shut all the lights off in our living room and pulled out the candles we had in the hallway closet. He told us it wasn't necessary, but he thought it would make it more exciting. I was honestly freaked out before we even started, but I made sure to hide that from my cousins. We all put our hands on the planchette and Gary led the way with the questions, starting with simpler ones like, is anyone here that wants to talk to us? Immediately, yes. Giselle accused Gary of moving it himself, but Gary swore that he hadn't. He was acting like it was the coolest thing ever, but I had a really bad feeling from the beginning. At first, the answers were really generic. Whatever we were asking or talking to, if it was there, said it wanted to talk and that it was in the room with us. Creepy, but definitely didn't prepare us for what would happen next. Gary started asking for Matt to come forward. At first, the board was quiet. It wasn't moving the way it was when we started. Gina started telling Gary that he clearly wasn't around or wanting to talk to us. We were about to give up and move on to another question when the planchette started moving around in circles. Gary said that this had never happened to him before, and honestly, looking back, he looked a little unsettled. The planchette started going in circles more and more. You would think that we would have taken our hands off, but we were shocked by what was happening. At first, it was going in motions that didn't make any sense, but then we realized it was spelling something. We realized it was spelling die over and over again. So not to interrupt the story, but I do want to say that when the planchette begins moving in circles, figure eights, or like to all four corners of the board, it's usually a telling sign that you are contacting a dark spirit or an entity, and you're advised to immediately close out the session. And that's another thing. I've done a whole video on Ouija board rules. If you haven't seen it before, you can check it out. But another thing as well is you have to properly close out a Ouija board, which I learned with my friends the hard way. That's a whole other story, but let's continue. Gary started asking what the hell whatever this was wanted, and its response chills me to this day. It responded, to live. Giselle, Gina, and I just stared down at the board in complete shock. This was our first time playing with a board, but we knew this couldn't be good. When we looked up, I realized something was very wrong with Gary. Gary's eyes were rolling to the back of his head and just looked empty. Giselle started screaming for Gary to cut it out and stop with the games. We thought he was messing with us at this point. She jumped up and turned the living room lights on and started screaming for Gary to stop. Gary fell onto his back and started shaking. It all felt like a blur until Gary sat up and started growling under his breath. He was looking straight at me, but his eyes almost felt black. Gina panicked and picked up the board. She started to destroy it. She broke the board in 2 pieces and threw it across the room. Gary came to it, but wouldn't speak about what had happened. We still don't even know if he remembers. To be honest, he seemed more upset about the broken board than anything. But the story doesn't end there. Not only have we not closed out the Ouija board properly, as I said, but we would later learn Gina should have never broken that board. True again. Don't break a Ouija board, especially one you haven't closed out. My entire family started suffering from nightmares. My mom started dreaming of what she called a beast man that had long claws and sharp teeth. She thought it was just nightmares at first, but when she told me the beast tells her he wants to live, I knew we had unleashed something from that board. It's been 2 years and things have only gotten worse. There is something very dark around my family. I know for a fact we unleashed something demonic, or at the very least dark. I wish that we never touched that Ouija board. My cousin Gary has been distant and off, almost like he goes in and out of trances. He's also very quick to anger. I still wonder if he got possessed that day. Anyways, that's where we're at. I wish we never played with that stupid thing. I'd rather be called a baby than deal with what we have been. Have any of you had a similar experience? I know some people love Ouija boards, but that wasn't my experience at all. And I fear for where this is heading. What should I do? And that's the end of the story. I mean, I guess not really the end of the story because it's still ongoing, but that's at present day. There were so many things, and I think they recognize that, so I don't feel bad for saying it, that they did wrong. Number one, having fear in their hearts while playing it. Not a great thing. You shouldn't approach a Ouija board or any sort of like communication with the other side when you're feeling sick or scared or unwell. Like we've talked about so many times on my channel, like-minded vibration attracts to one another. So if you're putting out positive energy, you're more likely to have positive experiences. If you're putting out negative energy, you're more likely to attract negative entities. That's why Lana has said that she doesn't even dance in the darkness. She doesn't have those experiences because she doesn't dance in that vibration. She is constantly bubbling herself, protecting herself in a white light, and making sure that in her work with spirit, she's well protected, and therefore she attracts spirits of that vibration. That was number one. Number two, I wonder the backstory of Gary and the Ouija board. I wonder if perhaps he'd been communicating with something dark from the get-go, but that obviously wasn't detailed in the story. But either way, while that was happening, not only did they not close out the Ouija board session, but they also broke the Ouija board, which is a recipe for unleashing whatever darkness they may have been communicating with. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you are going to play with a Ouija board, just make sure that you're aware of the warning signs. As I mentioned, they should have recognized, like when it was going in circles or whatever it was doing, hey, maybe we're not connecting with something so great, let's say goodbye, cleanse ourselves, protect ourselves in a white light. But hey, we've all made mistakes when connecting to the other side, and I hope that this family can find peace and hopefully maybe have someone come out and cleanse the space or something of that nature, because that sounds absolutely terrifying. What do you guys think of this experience? What do you think they should do? Definitely comment down in the comment section below. And I also want to know, have you had any freaky experiences with the paranormal? I'd love to know that as well. I love hearing your guys' personal experience. I truly feel like we're a family, and I love sharing my stories with you guys, connecting with you, and it just feels like you guys know so much about me. I want to know more about you if you're comfortable. So definitely comment down below and let me know. And that is it for today's spooky story time. Once again, I would just absolutely love to thank Keen for sponsoring today's video. As I mentioned, as a new Keen customer, you can get your first 10-minute reading for just $1.99, which is up to $99 in savings. I would personally highly recommend that you give it a go. I'll have a link at the very top of my description. Try keen.com/Reese. Make sure you guys click that link, check out Keen, and let me know your experiences with Keen also in the comment section if you are comfortable. Thank you so much to Keen for sponsoring. If you guys are new to my channel or you are just not yet subscribed, but you do enjoy my content, I would seriously love it more than you would ever know if you go ahead and click that subscribe button. And please give this video a big thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Remember, I love to do all things with kindness, and until next time, I love you.